All right. So our topic is something that just kind of came out of nowhere, but I'm like, oh, that's really cool.
Yep.
We're talking about wrestlers that not only just transcended the industry, but became icons.
Right.
Like pop culture, myth, everything is amazing about these people. We only did 5 because there are so many. I don't think people realize how popular wrestling is.
Yep.
But Peanut Gallery, I gave you 5.
Yeah.
We're going to start with Blue Demon.
Well, Blue Demon essentially is a pop culture phenomenon in Mexico.
Yep.
A lot of stuff on television, a lot of stuff in comics and print media. He was pretty much like the Superman of Mexico back in the heyday.
Well, he was also the villain too.
Yep, he was. Most of the time, he was the hero, and he portrayed a hero called Justiciero in movies and comics. So children in Mexico at the time grew up literally seeing him as the Superman of Mexico.
Right.
Going into that. And it kind of blurred that line between sports and fantasy. He appears on anything you can think of: murals, tattoos, merchandise, Mask of Pride and Mexican parades. I mean, he is just everywhere. And one of his famous, he had over 25 action horror films, and there are famous team-ups like Santo y Blue Demon contra los monstruos, which is Santo and Blue Demon versus the monsters, as an example. So, it's one of those things where he literally was not just a wrestler, but he also used his name and moniker to become Mexico's big superhero that kids love to watch on television or read in comics or see at movie theaters.
Like these are the levels that we're talking about.
Right.
Here. Not just we did movies. We're like
right, but yeah. So we're talking about just cultural phenomena as right, and that happens to be wrestlers essentially.
Right. Up next, I mean, when we're talking about this, you cannot talk about it without talking about Hulk Hogan.
Hulk Hogan was famous before his wrestling fame became big, most notably starring in Rocky III. I think that pretty much catapulted him into the spotlight. But he did have a breakthrough with his role in as Thunderclips in the 1982 movie Rocky III, but he was also in other movies throughout the 80s and 90s, like No Holds Barred, Suburban Commando, and Mr. Nanny. And so he really kind of was The Rock before The Rock.
And I mean, keep in mind, not just that, but Hulkamania was 80s.
Yeah,
pop culture.
That was 80s pop culture. He was the face of the 80s wrestling boom.
Right.
Like that was just something that happened.
I mean, even if you talk to anybody who doesn't even watch wrestling, when you say, oh, hey, name a wrestler, Hulk Hogan, that is the first name that you pop up on when it comes to American wrestling. It's Hulk Hogan.
We can talk about other things. So he was also on television. One of his most famous ones is Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling, which is a Saturday morning cartoon series.
And that happened that was prime time. That was on Saturday on NBC.
He was also instrumental in the Rockin' Wrestling Connection, which brought a lot of the music scene into wrestling. And again, that was very likely was a brainchild for Mr. McMahon to incorporate celebrities into WrestleMania. So to those of you who complain about celebrities at WWE shows, that has been a thing since literally WrestleMania 1.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, he was just everywhere. And even as a villain, like when he was in the NWO, he was still everywhere on television.
Right.
And he also dabbled in music and advertising. So he did record his own rock band in the 90s. He's been featured on talk shows, on game shows. He had brief crossover into video games. And while Hulk Hogan never himself entered into politics, he is a very influential figure in his high-profile legal battle against Gawker. He's just everywhere. And his involvement in politics, not literally into politics, but he was a very big Trump-endorsing celebrity figure.
Right. At least for the second term. I can't remember the first term.
And so that,
he has his beer too.
Yeah, he does. He has his own beer. I mean, he's still everywhere. People still recognize him.
Yeah, I mean,
not just as a wrestler, but as a
Hulk Hogan is a brand within of itself.
He is.
I mean, if you like I said, if you think 80s pop culture, Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage were they were the top.
Yes,
like they were
the top.
I mean, if even people are like, well, I don't watch it anymore, but I remember watching Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, but Hulk Hogan was always on top.
Yep, he was always the first one on the list. All right, Bella Twins. Now, of course, the most famous thing that they did outside of wrestling, and it was still wrestling adjacent, but it was Total Divas, which in of itself was a pop culture phenomenon.
It was huge. I don't think people realize how big Total Divas was. I mean, Total Bellas became a thing.
Yep, and the big thing that came out of that was it really gave us a exclusive look into the backstage lives of professional wrestlers, especially women's professional wrestlers. And yeah, I mean, beyond that, they've also been in media appearances and acting roles. A lot of it had to do with, wrestling adjacent things, because WWE has a big film division that they put their stars into, if the push comes to shove.
Yep.
And
the one why I chose the Bella Twins as well is because they are really blowing up in the fashion and beauty world now. So that's sort of why, because it's like, even though it's not like Hulk Hogan levels,
right?
You got to start somewhere.
They are also very prominent, at least at the time, they were very prominently featured as guest hosts, like guest judges, guest panelists, guest competitors. And they also are very successful entrepreneurs. They have their own wine label. They also have Birdie Bee, which is a women's lifestyle apparel. So they really have a lot of big things outside of wrestling, and they're not in the wrestling business as much as they used to be, but they would not be where they were at without wrestling.
Right.
But at the same time, they were really kind of the face of women's wrestling, women's empowerment in an era and time in which women's wrestling was just not there.
Right. It's kind of hard to sort of look at that, because I mean, I think we're still sort of feeling it now, but it's like
we're still feeling it, but there are a lot of women who are not professional wrestlers who will know the Bellas.
Right.
Because of their essentially takeover of E-Entertainment for the better part of a decade.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, really, they were pumping out seasons of Total Divas and Total Bellas like it was cake. It was crazy.
Yep. So Abdullah the Butcher, and so he more niche.
It is more niche.
It is very niche.
I wanted to diversify a little bit.
He did have a cult following because he was a pioneer in hardcore wrestling, and so he was also, beyond that, he was also well known in the Americas and Japan as a horror icon.
Yep.
So he was the archetype of an ultra-violent wrestler. So the grotesque scarred forehead, a result of decades of blading, is often shown as an illustration of wrestling's brutality. He also opened a restaurant.
He did.
Called Abdullah the Butcher's. Abdullah the Butcher's House of Ribs and Chinese Food. And
random combination of food ever,
and he was successful at it. He also had a lot of cameos in hip hop albums. Well, not hip hop albums, but music videos. A lot of hip hop music videos, because he is from Atlanta,
right?
And that was the birthplace of modern hip hop.
And he's actually really big in Atlanta. That's the thing. I think it's like he was huge internationally.
Yeah, he was. He also was in lots of low-budget films and TV projects. And again, this is not mainstream stuff, but it is a cult following that is outside the realm of wrestling.
And a lot of these hardcore wrestlers have Abdullah the Butcher to thank for a lot of that style mentality and what you can do with it.
Yep.
I just wanted to kind of throw Peanut Gallery a curveball when it came to like that mythos of
it was very much a niche thing, but he was, if you were a part of that, you were famous.
Yes, exactly.
And of course, we can't talk about cultural icons without talking about the first family of professional wrestling.
McMahons.
Yep.
I mean, from Jess McMahon to boxing to obviously now.
I mean, holy shit, where do we start with this? They revolutionized pay-per-view and they revolutionized media. They had syndicated television. They were a pioneer in that. They were pioneers in the pay-per-view industry. Again, they were also pioneers in celebrity involvement in professional wrestling. Vince McMahon bought this company from his father for $1 million, and then he sold it for $9 billion.
I mean, just look at the juggernaut, too. I mean, WWE is Americana.
Yep, you had the XFL, which the 2001 version pioneered sky cams in football.
They did. They were the first ones to use the cranes.
Yep. They created WWE Studios, which put out a lot of great movies.
Production for every aspect of life would not be where it is without the McMahons.
No,
it would not.
It just would not. They've done everything from action figures, video games, movies. I mean, you name it, the McMahons have had some sort of say into like how this whole operation is founded upon.
How action figures move their arms and legs actually came from action figures from pro wrestlers.
Yeah.
Because they wanted them to replicate the actual moves, and you can't do that without some sort of functionality.
And then, we can talk about the continuation of that as well. Stephanie McMahon is married to Triple H, who is part of the McMahon family by marriage.
Yep.
And he is still the creative director for WWE. And he is steering this ship.
And it's still Americana hot right now.
It is.
I mean, everything is put upon, internationally, Vince, definitely. Yep. You can't deny it no matter what he has done in the past. Yep. But these were such forward thinkers. Shane wanted Vince McMahon, his dad, to buy the UFC in 1999.
Yep. And they also created John Cena. They created Batista. They created The Rock. They created Hulk. Well, I mean, not like they didn't create Hulk Hogan, but Hulk Hogan was extremely popular as a result of Vince McMahon cultivating these people and giving them a platform, a national platform, an international platform to do what they do best.
And they knew what to do with, to show the strengths and hide the weaknesses for the most part. Like you said, pop culture, music, videos, movies. There are so many avenues of Americana, of international media that can almost all be sort of stemmed from the decisions that the McMahons made.
Yeah. And you still hear about them, whether you're a wrestling junkie and you still hear you still see Triple H in the back doing his thing, or even on the political front with Linda McMahon's various posts and her personal life, with politics.
And there are so many politicians who wouldn't have had the platform that they had without WWE in some way. Glenn Jacobs, Jesse Ventura, Matt Morgan also was a mayor. I can't remember what city, but
they're well known because of their ties to the wrestling industry, and because people know them. Oh my gosh, you're on TV,
and not only that, but social media presence and how to conduct yourself was revolutionized because of WWE. They are the single biggest sports-based platform. There's nobody that even coming close to them as it relates to engagement, as it relates to that. Marketing has forever changed because of the McMahons.
Yeah. And so there's no denying that these are all first-rate Hall of Famers.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, this is going to happen. But that's all I've got. Let's move on to your part.
Yes, so my part is going to start very similarly. And since Blue Demon was the first one, let's talk about his adversary for some of these things, which is El Santo.
Okay.
El Santo is the icon for Mexican pride, doing the right thing, and being a hero. To this day, the silver mask is the icon. When you think lucha libre and wrestling, the silver mask is it.
Yeah.
It's El Santo.
Yeah.
And this guy, it just started from wrestling.
Yeah.
He created a persona that has transcended into folk hero status. People write stories about the great El Santo defeating monsters and demons. His epic battles with Blue Demon and Mil Mascaras are something that transcend wrestling.
Like is it like comics and TV shows?
Comics, movies, TV shows. He started over 100 movies in Mexico because he literally was the Dwayne The Rock Johnson of Mexican movies in the 60s and 70s. Enormous popularity. And until he died, he never took off his mask. He did it once, and then I think the next day he died. He did it once. He personified everything about Lucha Libre. And to this day, there are so many things. I mean, he was the first one to really popularize him and Blue Demon. They were the first big rivalry that really put wrestling on Mexican television. He was that era of that, and wrestling is so popular on television. We'll cross that bridge again, but that's how big El Santo was. I mean, like you said, with Blue Demon, El Santo was the other guy. And he was this symbol of justice and the common man, because that's who he was. He's a national icon. He's still a national hero. Now let's talk about one that is kind of in the same light, and that is the Nature Boy Ric Flair. When you do woo, everybody, even if they're not wrestling fans, will know exactly what that is. He has personified fashion, how to conduct yourself on television. I mean, people want to be Ric Flair. In the 80s, he was so popular globally because of his flashiness and his ability to connect on television as a great bad guy. You can see a lot of what other people do now from Ric Flair, from being cocky. Logan Paul is a great example. You can see a lot of mannerisms, a lot of how he presents himself came from Ric Flair, the style and profiling. I'm rich, I'm better than you. He knew how to draw crowds. The cross-promotional stuff, he has
commercials.
a lot of commercials. He really was that. He was a cultural archetype for being confident on television. He did music videos. His robes are synonymous with the Nature Boy. Everybody, when anybody wears it, they want to be Ric Flair. And that all came from wrestling. He had a line of sneakers. He had his energy drink. Slap Flair on it. You're gonna have something there. It's a global phenomenon, just like Hogan. Now, not to the extent of Hogan, but I would say in a way, kind of, especially internationally with Ric Flair as NWA champion. He was the most famous NWA champion. Andre the Giant. Talk about a personality that transcends wrestling. Is Andre the Giant.
Well, he is the giant. Like that was his whole personality. That was his whole career was his size.
And people, he was an attraction. With Giant Baba, Andre the Giant was right there with Giant Baba, but Baba really never left Japan. Andre was brought into Japan. There were points in time in years where Andre was the highest paid athlete in the world. And this is going up against people like Muhammad Ali, like Mike Tyson, in some cases Floyd Mayweather, based on inflation. That's how much money this guy was making. Even though he had this literally larger than life, he was still very quiet. And in his local town in North Carolina, there's so many things branded with Andre. It's like, this is where Andre sat and had his drinks and hung out with the locals. It's to this day, that place is still open. There are museums dedicated to this guy. The Obey face from Supreme, that whole clothing brand, that's Andre. He is so just the drinking legends are still in myth.
Like there's like a myth about his drinking.
Right. The movies that he was in.
The Princess Bride.
Right. The Princess Bride was his big break in there, but he was older. That's the problem. The one thing that I would say about Andre, and it's nothing because of him, it was just at the time, he really just did not capitalize on that mythos as much, but it was kind of hard for him because he never really wanted that super in your face life. He just did it based on his size and based on his work. He was undefeated internationally for years, highly respected by everybody. Was Andre. Just awesome stuff. HBO's documentary about Andre the Giant, that's still one of their highest rated and most viewed documentaries that HBO has ever put out. And Andre has been dead since like 1993.
Is when he died.
It's been almost 40 years, and he is still 30 years. He is still that popular. To this day, he is that popular. When you think big guy in wrestling, you think Andre the Giant. It's just incredible. Oh man, now this one is going to be an interesting one, and that is, well, not yet. Rikidozen. Rikidozen was the father of Japanese wrestling. He was the symbol of post-war Japan, like getting back up.
Yeah, like in the 50s.
Fight for freedom. Yeah, he was 50s. He was an incredibly large celebrity. He was the ambassador for peace in Japan around the Cold War. He was sumo first. So sumo wrestlers are iconically big in Japan. And he was, I don't think he reached the level of Yokozuna. Maybe we'll do a show about those different sorts of wrestling. I think that'd be kind of interesting. He embodied the spirit of the nation. He did all of this wonderful things. He had nightclubs, restaurants. He started 2 radio shows in Japan that became their own global powerhouses. He helped Japan recover from post-war economic ruin because people flocked to his matches. He did a lot of international work to bring in a lot of sponsors, which was almost unheard of. The best thing about this is that all of these great things about Rikidozen, he was from North Korea. And at that time, actually even still to this day, North Koreans are lepers in Japan. Lepers. That's why he was killed. He was taken out by a member of the Yakuza because they learned that he was from North Korea. At the time, it was not North Korea, though.
Because it was just Korea, because it was the colony of Japan.
It just happened that his city fell on the side of North Korea. But that was the mentality back then. All of that stuff, and he kept that so private to his chest. And he was the one who trained Giant Baba and Antonio Inoki, who within of themselves became global myths within Japan. And still, he is known as the spirit of the nation of Rikidozen. And finally, and we will be watching a match of his, but we got to talk about Gorgeous George.
Because he was the first guy that did an entrance.
So Gorgeous George, he was the first waves of television. He understood how to do pop and circumstance. He was the first one to do a character. He was the first one to take his character outside of wrestling and really almost make it his public identity. And all of this stuff too. And he was wrestling in Washington, Oregon, California, Las Vegas. It was all this part of the country was Gorgeous George. Muhammad Ali took a lot of inspiration from Gorgeous George.
So did Ric Flair.
Ric Flair took a lot of it from Gorgeous George. Buddy Rogers did as well. Gorgeous George, he was not necessarily the best wrestler. He was an accomplished wrestler, but he was not a Lufez. He was not that sort of myth, but he really personified what wrestling was on television.
Mm-hmm.
He brought wrestling such popularity to television. To this day, it's still a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
People wanted to watch wrestling.
Yep.
Even this is early this is when the television was put in American houses.
Right.
Just for how big he was.
Mm-hmm.
There were multiple sources that said that there were more televisions purchased to watch Gorgeous George over people like Bob Hope,
right,
who was the quintessential guy in the 50s
yep.
for television.
Yep.
People, celebrities wanted to hang out with Gorgeous George.
Yep.
There are so many parts of what people do on television, and they can almost go back to what George did. And we'll actually watch a match, and you'll see how absolutely inspirational this guy is for everything. And he's kind of a lost hero. There aren't a lot of people who talk about his contributions. And I think, in a way, for me, I hope it comes back. That was it on my part. When we come back, we're going to watch a Gorgeous George match.
Yay!